Hello everyone, my name is Justin, and for today's video we'll be visiting a fantasy world. Well, kind of. Play the music. Outbreak Company is what you get when you combine the best of the otaku culture with a fantasy world. The main story focuses around Shinichi Kano, a young secluded otaku who is offered a job thanks to his vast knowledge of anime, manga, and video games. However, just after meeting his new employer, he is kidnapped, awakening in an alternate world with a fantasy setup. Shinichi is then informed that he was in fact selected by the Japanese government to help improve his country's relation with this new world by establishing a company to spread the unique products of the Japanese culture to this new and unexplored market. As always, there will be major spoilers ahead for this anime, so take that in consideration. And with that said, let's move on to review this anime, the good, the bad, and its ending. To be honest, I came to this anime expecting just a comedy about a guy just doing otaku stuff while living in a different world. But my expectations were completely shattered. To me, this anime feels like a love letter to the otaku culture. Both the good and the bad sides are really well portrayed as we see our main character teach some kids about the otaku culture. The first 3 episodes were an introduction to this world. Our main protagonist gets drugged and dragged to a different world to promote otaku culture, and right off the bat you get to see that the main points of the typical different world. Different races, discrimination, knights and magic, etc. And having this clash between the humans who want everything to stay the same and the Japanese government felt like a good way to start this show and to encourage necessary conflict for the plot to progress. We also get to see how the otaku culture feels for a typical Japanese person. Read 9 novels or manga, enjoy anime, but also having many figures, playing visual novels, and understanding the different terms that they lay in the otaku life, which are all taught in the school in his new job as a professor. Although I would say that there was some unnecessary stuff that didn't need to be taught. I'm really not a fan of BL. To be honest, every single episode felt like it was bringing a different part of the otaku culture to life. A day in Akihabara, a sports anime, the necessary swimsuit fan service episode, magical girls, you say it. So many topics were touched in a single 12-episode anime that make you feel closer to the otaku life. And the tiny bit references in the posters, the figures, and the transitions where we see all the characters' favorite animes felt like a really nice touch. There are so many episodes that really stood out to me among the others. First, the Hikikomori episode, in which we get a bit of more context on why the monarch of the empire is a 16-year-old girl, and also the struggles of having too much of pressure for a young girl. In this episode, she becomes a shut-in, staying in her room, eating and playing games the whole day. And our protagonist teaches her about the life as a shut-in, since he in the past was also one. Through the episode, we realize that living as a shut-in is not that much of a choice, but a last resort for some people as they stop going out for different reasons. And once they are inside, living becomes more difficult every day, until you cannot live anymore. And this real-life depiction of a serious problem felt really well thought and depicted in this episode.
あっという間に引きこもりの一丁上がりってわけさ。ま、引きこもりの大半はペトラルカほどの決意もなく、いつの間にかそうなってたって感じだと思うよ。
逃げ込んだ自分の部屋に。
扉がね、重くなっていくんだ。どんどんどんどん引きこもりが長くなるほどね。最後は自分では開けられないくらいに。
As the second episode, I want to mention the swimsuit episode. Of course, this is a filler episode and shouldn't bring too much to the plot into the table anymore. But the depiction of this episode felt like the perfect filler. We get the cute girls playing in the beach, some small plot about peeping on the girls, and of course, the part where the sages debate over the swimsuit that the princess should wear was priceless. The moment they mentioned the first swimsuit, I was thinking to myself, guys, you're forgetting the most important swimsuit for a lolly. And it felt like the sages heard me, since as soon as I thought that, they started talking about it.
私はこのスクール水着はいかがかと。は何を申すか。そのような水着がお似合いのはずがなかろう。しかし、
The last episode I thought stood out the most were the last arc, but we will talk about that later. The other thing I want to mention was the OST of this anime, and especially the sound that we could hear whenever something funny happened to our protagonist. I don't know where they got that sound, but every time I heard it, I was laughing.
これは不慮の事故というか、わざとじゃなくてね、すごい、いいものを持ってるよね、ミスル。
So with that said, let's move on to our next topic. While I did enjoy the show, there were some parts that felt a bit slow. Especially the first and second arc felt like took too much with all the progress on making the school and the assassination plot, as well as the whole werewolf spy arc felt a bit too slow. Another thing to mention is that even though I feel like I have a strong knowledge of the otaku culture, there were some things that didn't felt interesting to me. One of the things was the scene where our protagonist is playing a visual novel and he's enjoying every single bit of the dialogue. I don't know if it was just me, but the scene felt like the most boring of the anime. Maybe instead of that we could have played something more interesting or maybe an eroge, but I guess the otaku culture is too broad for me. But now let's move on to our last topic. While watching this anime, I had this thought in my mind during the first 10 episodes. Why is the Japanese government investing so much money into this thing? Sure, selling some figures will make some profit, but what is the point of this? I'm sure they could have done the same in any other country without spending so much energy plants, schools, etc. And then episode 11 hits, and we see the full plan of the Japanese government in action. You see, the plan was never to bring figures and mangas and animes to sell, but it was the culture itself and the way of life. By giving them a limited amount of supply of products, the Japanese government could control the prices however they wanted, and by teaching the kids to read and speak Japanese rather than their original language, they will get more attached to the Japanese culture. There is a reason why the full name of this show is The Outbreak Company, the Moe Invader, as our protagonist is in fact a culture invader, bringing his own culture to dominate this world.
そう、君は侵略者だ。軍事力じゃなく文化による侵略。
But as our protagonist doesn't want this to happen, he warns the queen and the people of this kingdom, which in turn makes the Japanese government start the assassination plot against him. Thanks to the queen's maids and our many supporting characters, our main protagonist is saved, and after confronting with the Japanese government, it is decided that if ever something is to happen to Shinichi, the Japanese has to move out of the kingdom. So our protagonist keeps going on with his life, teaching the otaku culture, with moderation of course, and helping the people of this new world create their own mangas, light novels, and art to protect them from the Japanese monopoly. And while I know that this is not a full ending, as the anime was made in 2013 and the light novel didn't finish until 2018, I still think that it's a good ending point for anybody who just wants to watch a standalone show about the otaku culture. And while I hope that there will be a second season, especially with the source material finally finished, even if there is no other season, this single season felt fulfilling enough for me and had enough of the otaku culture for a lifetime. And with that said, we come to the conclusion of this anime review. What did you guys thought of this anime? Did your way of thinking about the otaku culture change after watching it? Let me know in the comments below. If you like my content, please like and subscribe. See you guys next time.